welcome back to the Up All Night Book Club podcast. Today we're covering The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. My name is Abby.
I'm Jonathan, and today we're joined by special guest, Jacob Frady.
Hi guys, my name is Jacob. I am currently a senior here at UCF, or I will be in the fall. I'm an education major, and I believe this is my fourth book I've read with the club. And I'm excited to join everyone and talk about it. Got a lot of things to discuss.
Before we begin, if you haven't read this book yet, I would highly recommend doing so before listening to this episode. Taylor Jenkins Reid crafted a wonderful novel, and only listening to us would not do it justice. Here's a synopsis for those who need a quick refresher. The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo follows Monique Grant, an up-and-coming biracial journalist struggling to reconcile with her recent divorce, as she writes the biography of Golden Age movie legend Evelyn Hugo. Hugo, known as a sex icon who married 7 separate times, revealed that most of her marriages were either for publicity or as distractions for her relationship with the love of her life, Celia St. James. A surprising twist at the end reveals that Monique's father was having an affair with Evelyn's friend and film producer, Harry Cameron, and that her father's death, which she had always believed was the result of his own drinking and driving, was actually Harry's fault. Evelyn framed Monique's father as the driver in an effort to save Harry's reputation. It is also revealed that Evelyn has been diagnosed with terminal breast cancer and chooses to end her own life instead of letting the cancer take it. The ending is left open as to whether or not Monique chooses to tell her mother and the world about her father's secret relationship with Harry and the real cause of his death. So let's hop into it. I rated this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm not really into romance books, not really my cup of tea, but I thought the author did a fantastic job of crafting a beautiful book. It was so easy to read, and I really enjoyed reading about relationship dynamics when that's something that I usually am not reading about. I found the book growing on me the longer it's been since I've read it. I stayed up almost all night reading the last 150 pages because I was just so captivated by it. But that's what I thought. Jacob, what do you think about the book? What was your rating?
I went 3 out of 5 stars. I would probably put it more like a 3.2 or 3.3, but Goodreads kind of gives you got to give those whole stars. But I would probably go a 3 out of 5. Really solid read all the way through, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was a 4-star, borderline 5. I really loved this book. So it'll be interesting to see why everyone gave their ratings. What could you give a bit more insight with both of you guys? Why do you guys think you both gave it only 3 stars? I know.
Yeah.
I guess I should say explain your star system more, because for me, a 4 or 5-star book is phenomenal, and a 3-star is mediocre. But is that how you guys interpret it?
For me, it's more of a feeling. If a book is a 5-star, usually it's from start to finish. I thoroughly I loved it more so. And I even think about it for days on end afterward. A 4-star is the same, is really the same as well, but there's probably minor, whether maybe it's a slow start, not a great ending, that doesn't put it in that kind of upper echelon. 3-star, it's probably more of there was some problems I had, whether it was plot, character development, an ending, slow beginning. 2-star, if it's a 2-star, I'm close to putting the book down at times. If it's a 1-star, it probably got close to not getting finished for me. But the best way I can describe it is it's definitely a feeling. It's just a feeling I have while reading it. 5-star, it's just a great feeling all the way through, I'd say. Yeah. What about you, Jonathan?
Yeah, I would also have to say the feeling. A 5 stars, I absolutely loved the book. I'm going to reread it again. I'm going to recommend it to people. This was just a book that really resonated for me from the moment I picked it up. Or maybe if it was a 4-star in the beginning and towards the end, the ending was phenomenal, it'll go up to a 5-star. A 4-star is I really enjoyed the book. There's no complaints. There's nothing wrong with it. 3-star is okay, I might not have liked it as much. It's an average book. Probably won't read it again. But I didn't hate my time reading it. A 2-star is like, I won't read it again. I won't recommend it to anybody. And a 1 star is I hated it. I probably didn't finish it. I think I've only rated like 1 or 2 books 1 star. And one of those I had to read in high school. I think I hated it because I had to read it in high school.
That's always hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Abby, what about you? Like, how do you give your ratings?
I'm a lot more generous with my ratings, I guess. For me, a 5-star book is a book that is going to become my entire personality for a very long time. A 4-star book, again, it's just a great read. I love it. But maybe I don't like live in the world as much. As like a 5-star book, if that makes sense. Like this book was fantastic. I loved it. And I thought about the characters, but then I wasn't also interested to read more or like make up my own more, if that makes any sense. A 3-star book is an objectively great book. But again, maybe it just didn't leave me thinking afterwards. 2-star book is just a book. I'll read it. I read it. I'm done. It's not necessarily a bad book. It's just I read it and it was completely gone. And then a 1-star book, I don't think I've ever rated a book 1 star. If a book gets that bad, I just stop reading it. And if it's for school, I'll go to SparkNotes. So again, I guess my star system is a bit more liberal than you guys, but maybe that's also why I love this book so much more. And I just love old Hollywood, like old Hollywood movies, my thing. And then just hearing this book about a young woman, maybe I just related to it a bit more.
And that definitely could have been it too. It's difficult because for me, a 3 out of 5 is still like a really good book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not 1. So it's just 4-star is a great book. And a 5-star, it's like one of the best. Like it might go in like my best, like books on Goodreads or something, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Everyone has their different ratings for sure.
I'm glad to see we all agree that we liked it though.
Yeah.
Like we were talking at the picnic, actually, none of us had heard a single bad review of the book. And so I kind of went in thinking, oh, it can't be that good. Mm. But it's one of those few books where it really lived up to the hype of it all because I know most people heard of it from TikTok.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that's why it was like suggested apparently.
And I noticed that too, because it was one of those, like when you go on Goodreads, I think the average star rating is like a 4.5 or something. Yeah. And that's an experience I had with the Midnight Library. To me, like that one, I mean, that's a 5-star for me. It lived up to the hype. Actually, like what Jonathan said too, part of the star rating for me is rereadability. So that factors in. So for me, like I've already thought about going back and reading the Midnight Library like multiple times. For this one, I could go back and read it. I don't know if I would enjoy it as much on a reread as I would like the Midnight Library though. So that factors in for me.
For me, like my star rating, I guess, is more based on how much I thought of it afterwards. I am a huge rereader. I will reread book. Like I read books all the time. Like that's normally what I do. I'll like finish a book, think on it, and then go and reread it immediately after.
Yeah.
That's how I read. So that's actually interesting to know like that difference. And I will say after rereading this, so many things, I noticed like so many different like little things like that. The twist ending. It really, it feels like it comes out of nowhere, but I ended up having my book and marking all the places where it was kind of hinted at. And she really did lay the seeds for that to be a really solid twist. And seeing all those like little details that she put in, it just made me appreciate this as a book, as a piece of literature more.
I could definitely see that. See, I definitely noticed the seeds. We can get into that maybe later too, but I mean, to me, I never just bought that, like Evelyn just read a column from Monique and was like, oh, even though I do believe that factored into it a little bit, but there was some ties there. And especially as Monique kept hinting towards something in the middle of the book. Now, I will say, I didn't guess that the twist would be what it was. I personally thought Evelyn may have had like maybe some relationship with him, with Monique's dad.
I will say I predicted as soon as I saw the whole like Right to Die article that she did, I was like, oh, Evelyn's going to kill herself at the end of the book. That was like immediately I knew that. But I did not see the connection to her father.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in her it's kind of in her personality. I think like she likes having full control over her life
Exactly.
and of everything that happens in her life. And since she left Hell's Kitchen early on, I thought it was fitting for a character. Obviously, it's really sad, but I I thought it was pretty fitting.
So I guess that kind of goes back. So what did you guys think of Evelyn as a character? She's really complex. Like, what feelings did you have from her?
So while I was reading the book, I was pretty neutral. I didn't like her, but I didn't dislike her. But after reading the book and digesting it for a couple days, she's definitely grown on me. I think the author did a fantastic job of making her into not just like a character, but like a believable person. Like if I opened the news and saw her name pop up, I would 100% believe it, because the author did just a fantastic job of fleshing her out. She really did what she had to do in both her career and her relationships, and I respect that. If I was in her situation, I probably wouldn't have done everything that she did. Might have done some things differently. But I think that is what makes her interesting, that she, wasn't perfect, that she had her flaws, and she really was like a human being and a product of her environment. What do you think, Jacob?
I personally, I loved Evelyn. One of the things I love with characters is a morally gray character. And that's what I saw Evelyn as. Now, initially, for me to love a morally gray character, I have to feel like their actions are justified a little bit. So like in the beginning portions, she was a little bit too like self-driven for me. But I mean, part of her development as a character is her coming to the realization that like family and familial ties is like the most important part. So by that point, especially towards the end, I loved her as a character. She's captivating as I imagined she would have been in real life, like in the story. So I thought she was well developed, and definitely my favorite parts of the book were when she was on the pages. Definitely.
Absolutely. I feel like for me, I loved her from the beginning. Like I recognized she wasn't a great person, but as soon as at the beginning of the book, when she goes to Harriet Cannon and she like flips out the bad review of the actress that like she was skipped over for, and was like, I could have done great.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, I love this girl. She was so selfish to the point where it was like, yeah, I don't know, but so like you couldn't condone her, but at the same time, I just loved reading about her. I loved reading about her doing maybe not necessarily the best things, but just to see her succeed because of that, if that makes sense.
It does.
I was just always rooting for her.
It does. And I can see the justification because to a point, because part of the thing that they discuss in the book is that everyone is out for themselves. So if you're not, then you're going to get taken advantage of in some way. And I think that like she noticed that, and that's part of this nature of Hollywood, how you kind of propel yourself. And it's unfortunate that it's that way, but I mean, even early on in the relationship between her and Cecilia, I mean, Cecilia openly admits that this is benefit to her, to both of them. So yeah, it's tough.
Okay, so here's something I really want to ask about you guys. What was her name? What did you guys think of Ruby? I think her name was.
Yeah, it was Ruby Riley.
Yes. What did you guys think of her character, especially when she got with Dawn?
I didn't think much of her character personally. I mean, she was kind of, it's like when we go back to saying like she was one of those that was very career focused. I think that move to get with Dawn was something that propelled her in her career as well. I believe that she got a starring movie role after she got with Dawn as well, or took one of the roles or something like that. So, I mean, for me, she was kind of just a side character of sorts. I didn't hate or love her. I know they had that phone conversation and kind of squashed some things to the best of their ability, her and Evelyn, but I didn't think too much of her. What did you guys think?
I thought she was a good supporting character during the time at Sunset Studios, and she definitely played a big role in Dawn's redemption arc.
Yes.
Because if we didn't have Ruby, married Don,
Mm-hmm.
then we would have never known that Don was still, an abusive guy. I'm just gonna say guy. I think she filled out that role, and that was pretty much what she was designed for in the book.
And I was actually going to ask, I think the more interesting question with Ruby is in relation to Evelyn. Like, what did you?
I was going to say, I loved her as like what Evelyn almost was. Had she not had that inner strength to realize, I need to get out of this relationship with Don. He's abusive. He is terrible. And I'm not, I mean, I know who I am now and I don't want to be with Don. If she hadn't had that strength, if she had been like Ruby and just stuck out and it's like, if I can I can cover with makeup, I can hide out, I can make this, it's all for my career. She would have ended up becoming nothing like Ruby was. I mean, when my favorite part of the book has to be when Monique comes in and sees the photo of Little Woman on in Evelyn's apartment. And she's like, the only ones that stand out are Evelyn and Cecilia, but we later find out that Ruby was on there. And it's not that she wasn't a great actress, but because she didn't have that strength of character and that luck, I suppose, that Evelyn had, she played it. And so I really loved Ruby's character for that reason.
I did too. And I guess the question I would ask too, again, going back to in relation to Evelyn, what did you think about the decision? Because I think it was during this phone call she brought up Evelyn's decision not to warn Ruby about the physical abuse and everything that went on in that relationship. Because I believe she did express some remorse, but it's also hard because, I mean, she just kind of got with her. I mean, I don't even know if they probably weren't fully divorced when she got with Don initially. I mean, what did you think about that decision? Do you put much fault on Evelyn, or do you understand? What do you think about that?
I think it's
really complex. Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan.
I think she might not have handled it. Like, she would kind of put it off because of the times, like back in that was the late 50s, early 60s, right?
Would have been early 60s, I think. Yeah.
Early 60s. Like, domestic abuse was kind of like a hush hush sweep under the table thing.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I feel like part of it was definitely rooted in like the selfish desire to see Ruby fall. I definitely like, given Evelyn's character, you can't not see that. But I also think a lot of it was, who would have believed her? If she went to Ruby and been like, hey, this guy's abusive, she's like, oh no, you're just saying that so I don't succeed. Yeah. Because of the environment they were in. And
right. Like how would Ruby have perceived that? Like, oh, you're just, I mean, you're, whether it's selfishness or jealousy, I should say, that that I've gotten with Don and that I've gotten this movie role, et cetera, et cetera. So I do think it's a really difficult position to be in for both of them, but mostly for Evelyn. I understand the choice not to say anything, but I thought it was interesting because they kind of posed that question. And I remember sitting there reading it was, oh, well, was that a good decision on Evelyn's part not to say anything? And I wouldn't say it's good or bad. I just kind of understand it, I think.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest, like the greatest accomplishment of this book is how much we understand Evelyn. She does a lot of not great things, but we're like, okay, I understand. I can't fault you for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because we're kind of like Monique in that sense, the reader, because even by the end, like Monique's like, I think I know Evelyn better than I know myself. I felt like I will give Taylor Reid props there. Is her development of Evelyn, I thought was, she really fleshed out the character. And
yeah, it's like Jonathan said, like I went back to watch, because I don't know if you know this, but there was a Little Woman that came out in the 1940s. And it was very famous and it was very popular. And I went back and watched it after this and I was like, where's Evelyn?
Yeah. Yeah. Like you feel like she's a real person. Yeah, that's definitely, I definitely would actually be interested to go. I didn't go back and look at or like watch Little Woman, but I did look up like 1960s music and 1950s music to try to get like the vibe of the times. And I did. Yeah. But I was just thinking of Evelyn and Cecilia and all those characters the whole time when I was listening. So what did you guys, as far as other kind of like side characters, what did you guys think about Harry in particular?
I'd probably say he was my favorite character out of the whole book
Yeah.
because he was like the best friend. He was always there for Evelyn when he needed her, when she needed him. And, you know, he went through a lot, and I might not have agreed with some of the decisions he made, especially towards the end of the book, but I just feel like he was just a genuine guy.
Yeah, he's the friend you always wish you had.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe him.
And I loved his relationship with Evelyn. Kind of at the beginning where he kind of takes her under his wing a bit. And then by the end of the book, they're just such equals. And that's just my favorite kind of relationship development.
Definitely.
And I thought, oh, when he died, that was so sad.
Yeah, I will say
in such a shocking way.
Oh, it was shocking. That yeah, we can definitely get into that too. I loved Harry too. He had so much life to him. I was thinking like as far as a character that I'd kind of want to maybe hang out with or like go out with at night. Like he is definitely the fun one.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as what you were saying, Abby, yeah, I think there's something to that because I believe he was maybe like 10 or 15 years older than Evelyn too. So he definitely kind of helped get her feet under her and learn like the ins and outs of Hollywood.
When after the party, when she sees Dawn like really come out and she's like kind of hooked up with Celia, and she's like, I'm divorcing Dawn. He's like, okay, I'll support you. But you gotta know what you're getting into. And he just doesn't question it.
Yeah. And I don't know what you guys think about this too, but I feel like I don't read a lot of it, but it's also cool to see like such a strong relationship between like a guy character and a female character without it being, because initially I think I'm just so used to reading types of literature where like I was like, oh, this is going to be a love interest for Evelyn eventually, like before you fully know, but it never is. And I think it worked out better because the relationship just felt like so strong. It was just rooted in true friendship, I thought. So I thought that was cool too. I think that's probably, if I had to rank, probably like my second favorite just dynamic in the book. The first being Cecilia and Evelyn. But yeah.
I have to think that was part like Taylor Jenkins Reid had to do that on purpose as a subversion of that trope of the young female and her mentor like kind of getting together.
Yeah.
I had to think she did that on purpose.
Yeah, no, I think she subverted expectations 100% because she did mine. Because I was like, oh, this is a love interest. And no, it never was. And it was just a really strong, kind of fresh relationship, I thought, that I haven't read a lot of that type of dynamic.
So segueing into Celia and Evelyn, what did you guys think?
I loved it. I would say that it took a little bit for me to feel fully invested into it. But by the end, I didn't even realize quite how invested I was because it's like, man, I think I was on the verge of tears multiple times, especially by the end that obviously that the other reveal there. But I mean, it's sort of a tragic relationship, I think, on a lot, just due to the nature of the time, how society viewed LGBTQ relationships. And I thought it was unfortunate just how that was, but they were still able to create something really strong. And by the end, at least they kind of were able to come together again and have a really strong ending. What do you guys think though?
I fell so hard as soon as she kissed the TV. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was so adorable.
What was the comment she made in the letter too? Like I didn't, because I think this was like they weren't talking on the phone or something, but like after, I think it was after one of her Grammys, like she wrote in the letter something too, like in reference to that, like I didn't kiss any TV screens this time or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's a funny little. I like that about their relationship. It was cool like that. And like when Evelyn won I don't know if it was a Grammy or an Academy Award, but I don't remember the exact line that she said, but it was something that was obviously in reference to Cecilia. Even though I guess Cecilia said she didn't know for sure if she was talking about Evelyn or if Evelyn was talking about her, but I thought that was a nice touch too.
Yeah, I just found the letter you were talking about. Where it's like, I did not kiss the TV this time, but I did cheer just as loudly as I did the other times.
Yeah. That was what I was thinking of.
So go ahead.
Well, because that was after, I think it was a 5-year gap. And at that point, they were just making contact again. Sorry, Jonathan, not to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, I really liked how the author really showed us how much they loved each other and how they were meant for each other. But I definitely got annoyed with their breaks. They're like 5-year, 10-year breaks. I just thought like they should just get back together already. Like just stop it.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna get back to. Can we talk about the movie where when she ended up like sleeping with, or they were acting, I guess, but like she was with Dawn and Celia got so mad about that. I was like, lady, she's an actress, but I also couldn't get mad at Evelyn because it was the 80s and she could have made a phone call. All it would have taken.
Yeah.
And see, I don't really know. Again, like we can get into this a little bit. Just as far as like for me, like parts of the plot felt a little contrived because that part in particular, I didn't know. It felt a little out of character for Celia, I thought, because I mean, she was the one that pushed her into taking that role, and when she did, I mean, her being such a the type of actor she was that like fully like takes on her role. I just didn't. I don't know how I felt about that. It felt like almost sort of like that was just put in there so we could like push in another like husband going on.
I thought it was perfectly in character because like Celia was very jealous and a very selfish. I mean, they're all very selfish people. They wouldn't get where they are if they weren't. But like she showed earlier in the book that she gets very jealous of Evelyn being with men.
Yes.
And of course, Evelyn didn't consult her before doing it. So she just kind of went off and she'd already been, working overtime, babysitting, and she was probably exhausted at that point. She probably wasn't in a great state of mind when Evelyn talked to her. Because I think it was really late at night when Evelyn told it, right?
And she did it in such a bad way. She was like, okay, but what if I did this? And then when she reacted poorly, she was like, well, actually I did.
Yeah.
No, and no doubt it wasn't handled great at all by Evelyn. And I absolutely understand that because there was other instances earlier on. I just didn't know if it, again, it was in the context of it was a scene that they were doing for a movie. And I understand why she would be upset about it. I just didn't know if again, I don't know if, obviously I'm not the person to say, but if that reaction was warranted to where they just didn't talk again for 5+ years.
Both the woman, like especially Evelyn, that was probably like one of my favorite things about her character is that she had a very traumatic childhood and she had a very traumatic life, and it left her very suspicious and proud. The only thing she had in herself was her own pride and confidence, and so it made a lot of sense for her character, given how, I don't know how to say it, but like it makes sense given what she went through, like what her past life, why she didn't talk to her for so long. It's like, I can't go back now. It'll ruin my pride, and pride's all I've got. Pride's got, and she's not wrong. Her pride and her confidence had made her successful.
They were both very stubborn.
Yes, very, very stubborn. So
see, I feel like
their fights made complete sense. They were so, like, for their characters, it was so frustrating, but it also made complete sense to me.
Yeah, I definitely get that. But so after that happened, was this the fight where like Evelyn went up to like Cecilia's door and was like crying outside and was that the particular scene and that she did that? Because to me, I felt like at that point she was almost ready to kind of give up that pride.
Yeah,
like she was just ready to go full into her relationship.
Yeah, she flew out to LA, I think, and it was like banging on the hotel door, like didn't care that other people were seeing it in the hallway.
Oh my gosh.
So
I'm looking at the quote right now.
So I almost thought at that point she was ready to let that go.
Right. I also, something I really liked about that scene is I think it showed how nonchalant Evelyn was about sex in general. Like Celia still thought it was this very sacred thing that you only do between people you love. But she was like, yeah, I just did it for a movie. It's what I do. Sexuality is my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was
that's
really good
that
at
was
demonstrating
part of
those two things.
There's a quote in there.
She had
there's a quote.
No, you're good. Sorry.
I can't remember exactly the wording of it, but there's a quote in there that was like, sex is something you use that Evelyn uses to get what she wants.
Yes.
Sexuality is something that is sacred to her. So she really separated those things in her mind.
Yeah.
But Celia didn't.
And she had to divorce sex from that like strong, like emotional connection early on because she was using it as a way to kind of forward her career. I mean, there was that director early on, and there was other guys throughout, but it wasn't until, well, I mean, she did say she loved Don, especially early on. But I think really sex with Cecilia in particular was when she like had that strong, like emotional connection. Everything outside of that, I kind of agree with you guys. I don't think she viewed it in those lenses, through those lenses.
I'm trying to find that quote where she says, okay, here, if the definition of enjoying sex means it's pleasurable, then I've had a lot of sex that I didn't enjoy. But if we're defining it as being happy that I've made a trade, then, well, I haven't had much I hated. And I think that like really explains how she felt about it throughout the entire book.
Yeah.
And I thought that one line, I was like immediately like, oh, I know Evelyn now. I know what she's going to do. And I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I did too. So yeah, and just in general, I thought that relationship, that dynamic between the two, definitely the strong point of the book for me. When those two were on the pages, I fully enjoyed it. I love Cecilia as a character too. Her and Evelyn. Were there any other kind of characters that stuck out to you guys? Like any side ones you want to discuss, or?
The poor mother, poor Monique's mom. What'd she do? She was.
I know.
That poor woman. Because that's all. There was one thing I wish we could have had on the book. It's her mother's reaction to like the death of her father, like finding out the real death of her father.
And to me, I didn't know how I felt about her withholding that information for the mother, because to me, part of the takeaway for the book of Evelyn finally telling her story was some of these things need to be said. I felt like Monique's mother was deserving of knowing that truth. Now, I think it was kind of left open-ended whether Monique would ever tell her at all. Mm-hmm. I completely get wanting to tell her on her own time, but if she never told her, like to say she went the rest of her life not saying anything, I don't know how I'd feel about that personally.
Wouldn't she read it in the book when Monique's mom read what happened in the book with the car accident? Or oh wait, no, at the end,
do it before.
Then at the end she said that like she was thinking about leaving that part out.
Yeah, that's the thing. She even said specifically that she didn't know if she was going to put that part in. So that would be the deciding factor. I would sure hope she would tell her before just putting it in the book and her finding out that way.
I think Monique would put it in there. I think she would put it in the book just because she has that integrity. I mean, she was trusted with the story, and that's part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And to me, that was a takeaway, like Evelyn getting her truth out, her story. I think withholding certain information, I don't know, that wouldn't be the best way to go about it, in my opinion, but certainly it's a bombshell to unload on anyone though, that reveal.
Yeah.
I know if I was thinking it from like an author perspective, I probably would leave it out just because of how insane it is. The fact that this unknown man who had a wife and a child was having a secret affair with this other man, very famous man, and they were having an affair together, got in an accident in which the other unknown man was framed for. Like, I know if I read that, I'd be like, that's something out of a tabloid. I don't think that's true.
I mean, it's very shocking. And because we have to acknowledge the fact that, I mean, Evelyn basically covered up a murder too, by doing so. So it's like, I mean, that goes into Evelyn as a character too. I mean, that's definitely something that who I don't think I could do something like that personally. But again, I'm not in her shoes, and I don't live like that kind of like Hollywood life. Like you have to do certain things to hide things and propel yourself.
Talking about the secondary characters during that scene, Nick, the driver, Evelyn's driver, I liked him at first, but then when he called her, like, get me in a movie, like, or else I'm gonna, like, you know, tell everybody what happened. I didn't like that, but I get that's what you have to do in the industry, but I still didn't like that.
And it's funny because I think that's actually something that Evelyn respected about him, because she's so used to that lifestyle. And I think there's a quote in the beginning, but like I think she says to Monique, I don't know, Abby, you're good at finding the quotes, but in terms of like, you have to take things when they come to you and not second guess it. Like when opportunities are presented, like you have to take it and run. And that's what he did. Huh?
If I had been in a better frame of mind, I might have marveled at just how opportunistic Nick was, how aggressive. But Nick somehow turned being in the wrong place at the wrong time into a crime.
Yeah. And that's how a lot of people kind of get into the positions they do, I guess. You know, it's kind of like the nature of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how I felt about him, but I guess he went on to be a really successful actor. So he knew what he was doing.
My favorite thing about this book had to be just how gritty a picture it painted Hollywood. Lots of times, like even now, I can't help it. Like you think about all the actors and actresses, you see them on like the red carpet, and you're like, they must have such a great life. It must be so like smooth sailing the whole time. And even she mentions that at the beginning, where she's like, my mother wanted to go to Hollywood. I wanted to go to Hollywood because I thought it'd make me and life was fun. Life would be easy. And this book did a really good job of like painting just how terrible a world it really is, and how terrible a person you have to be to really thrive in it.
Absolutely. And I think the old Hollywood time period in particular can be romanticized a little bit. 100%. So I liked how she definitely painted it in a realistic aspect. I mean, what Evelyn had to do, basically, you know, forego her identity. I mean, that's kind of like part of the whole thing too, is Evelyn finally accepting her identity and things she loves, especially like her ethnicity, because the whole thing throughout the book is she kind of distances herself from like her Hispanic side.
Yeah, in particular. I don't know. Have either of y'all heard of Rita Hayworth, the actress?
Yes.
Like she's quoted a few times in this book, and like as soon as even I read the back, I was like, oh, this is like a Rita Hayworth story. She was Mexican American. She was a dancer. Even like her life, like at the beginning of her life, it's so similar to Evelyn's. She was sexually abused by her father for a very long time, just like Evelyn, it suggested was. When she finally got to Hollywood, she went from, I think, Margarita to Rita. They lasered her hairline forward because like the wide forehead was big back then.
That's interesting.
She got married about like quite a bit for the time.
And as far as her sexuality goes, was she bisexual too, or is it?
I actually don't know that. I don't think she was, or we don't know that much about her.
The Mexican-American connection, that's really interesting. She could have been loosely based on Rita Hayworth.
And specifically, Rita Hayworth was such a sexualized figure back then.
Right.
Like she mentions it in the book Gilda. They went to bed with Gilda, but then they woke up with me. That's like her most famous quote ever. And I feel like that tied really well into Evelyn's story.
Yeah, that's really interesting too. I know the name. I don't know enough. I didn't know enough about her background to really make that like connection, but it would make sense. Yeah. So were there any parts, like we've kind of talked about side characters? I think we could talk about Monique, like what you guys thought about Monique as a character.
I want to hear you guys' thoughts first.
Jonathan, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So I actually just looked up the actress, rather. You said she had multiple husbands too. So it's very possible that she was based on
connections.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So good. If you guys can catch, it's Gilda, not Glinda. Gilda. It's a great movie.
Yeah, that was the first one that popped up when I searched her name.
Oh, the Am I Decent scene? 10 out of 10.
So Monique, now I liked her character development throughout it because in the beginning she was like not confident, and at the end she was confident. So I liked that change. Um, Other than that, I was pretty neutral towards her. Honestly, I didn't hate her. I didn't love her. She was kind of the narrator, the way the story was being told through. For those chapters that covered her.
Yeah. I kind of felt the same way a lot. I really I felt no investment into her as a character. I solely saw her as obviously her chapters framed Evelyn's story, but I did not care personally about the relationship that she had with her ex-husband in particular. Like that whole like side plot to me was just, I wanted to like hurry up and get back to the Evelyn chapters. And even I think that's partly why the reveal at the end, though it was shocking for me, I didn't like feel like this swell of emotion specifically for Monique. I felt for Harry and I felt for the dad in particular, but I think I just didn't feel much investment in her as a character. And it could have been just because I was so much more captivated by Evelyn's story that it was almost like I was dreading and like having to carry myself through the Monique chapters just to get back to the Evelyn ones. But she was just kind of just a character, a vesicle to move the plot forward. That's kind of what I saw her as.
So I read the book of the month version of it, and there's no chapter numbers on it. Like when you open up a new chapter, it's just like it starts. I don't know if you can see. It starts just like a third of the page down. So I got really confused sometimes. I don't know if there's titles on the chapters, but sometimes I start reading. I'm like, wait, who are we still talking with Evelyn? Are we talking Monique now? I got confused sometimes. And
there's just numbers. And okay. I actually had that experience too. There would be times where like it switched perspectives and I was reading and I would get confused a little bit. And I realized, oh, we're in a Monique chapter again. Because Evelyn's still in the Monique chapter. So it can get a little confusing because the dialogue can kind of, it's similar in ways, but.
And they're both first person too.
Right.
Yeah. And I actually forgot who David was. Like about halfway through the book when he texts her, like calls her or whatever, I'm like, who's David? I had to go back and like try to find him in the beginning chapters again.
I've already forgotten who David was because I just didn't care much about that whole like side plot personally.
I'm glad he brought the coffee table back though.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I love Monique. I thought she was a great parallel to Evelyn's character. I never thought she was unconfident, Jonathan.
Really?
Like she's always talking about like, okay, I can do this. I did this. I divorced my husband to do this and I'm going to do a great job at it. Like that was her mindset from the very beginning. And she stumbled a little bit because this was her first time, but she always came back with full confidence. Like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be great at it. And that mindset was so similar to Evelyn's in so many ways. She was willing to sacrifice this relationship to a man for her career, just like Evelyn was so many times.
But I think the difference for me is that confidence and that that confidence just felt more genuine with Evelyn for me. With Monique, it just didn't.
It did ring as arrogant almost a few times.
A bit, yeah. I mean, even like the attitude she had towards her mom. I mean, obviously, I don't know what went on, but like, it was just like she was almost just dreading like everything about her, like seeing her, talking to her. And every time her mom was in the picture, she seemed like a pretty nice lady to me. But again, I don't know. A lot of her, she's not, I think part of it, she's just not as fleshed out as a character as Evelyn is. So like that confidence and that self-determination felt so much more genuine and less contrived than Monique's did. Because Monique's was solely like it had to be so she could take the story and or stay there. And then obviously, I think Vivant was the magazine she worked for. Mm-hmm. So obviously she had to take a position with the head, I forget her name, but the head of Vivant there. And so that she could position herself to still get the book deal and not get fired from the magazine or the publisher in particular. But yeah, I would say that's really it for me. It just felt more contrived versus Evelyn's felt very true to her character. Maybe I just didn't know enough about Monique.
No, I definitely agree. They almost did a bit too much with Monique. Maybe David could have gone out of the picture because every time he just showed up, he just made me angry.
He's
I
like an
didn't like him.
NPC, just like he's so
Exactly.
bland. There's nothing to him. It was just like, and when I talk about that, like that was almost just like that side plot was like a page filler to me. It was like I wasn't sure why I was supposed to feel invested in that.
The sole reason it was there, I think, was to, again, draw that parallel between Evelyn and her, where it's like she's willing to do anything to be the best, just like Evelyn was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I can see
why you guys wouldn't. Like again, I mean, I've read this how many times now, so I feel pretty connected to Monique, but I can definitely see why. Like she can see. Like I remember in my first read, I did not like Monique's chapters. I was just like, oh, why is this here again? Give me back to Evelyn.
And that's interesting. So I don't know, maybe on a second read, I would feel differently. I don't think I would, but I don't know. I can't say for sure.
But that's because, like, is it still, there's the question to ask whether it was done well if you have to read it twice again.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, it's just, again, it's that juxtaposition between Evelyn's chapters, which were so character driven to me, and then Monique's chapters filled with characters. I mean, outside of Evelyn, I just didn't really care about at all. David, the lady publisher, I forget her name exactly. Monique's mom. I mean, I think that's it. She seemed cool. I just feel like we didn't get much of her, you know? It's hard to really.
I felt bad for her at the end. She deserved better. And whatever her daughter was doing to her, deserved better. But
I agree.
I definitely agree that, like, especially her father, I feel like there should have been more build up to her father.
Mm-hmm.
There should have been more of a connection between.
Like for it to hit emotionally, it would have had to have been for me.
Yeah, like, I mean, I cried during that because Harry died and that was devastating, but I was like, James, who cares?
I forgot who James Grant
Harry
was.
does for sure.
Yeah, I had to go back and I forgot who James Grant was. I forgot that was her dad's name.
Oh yeah.
Like I think she just referred to him as her dad most of the book.
Yeah,
they don't call her like Miss Grant or whatever. They just call her Monique. So I forgot her last name was Grant. And I was really invested in the Evelyn storyline. So the Monique storyline just kind of took a backtrack in my mind.
Definitely. And it's like, okay, so like Abby's saying, like she cried because of the Harry death. Yeah, that's what got me, because I mean, how fleshed out was Harry as a character? I mean, we just got pages and pages, and that relationship between Evelyn and Harry in particular that I've personally felt really invested in. And then it's, I mean, as far as James, we don't really get any like chapters with him.
I think it especially is hollow given how much Harry loved, oh goodness, what was his name? Barry?
John Berryman?
Yeah, the football Braverman. I think it's Braverman.
Braverman. Yeah, it's Braverman.
Given how much was spent building their relationship and seeing how much they loved each other.
Yeah.
And then going to this James guy who were like, I guess he was like a photographer or something.
I thought he was a sound boom guy, but maybe he was a photographer.
Yeah, he worked on set in Hollywood somewhere.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it was referenced to early on. But yeah. See, for me, that was one of the strongest parts of the book is when Harry and Braverman, that relationship, and then Cecilia and Evelyn, like when they were all kind of like a family unit and working together, because I love both of their dynamics. I thought that worked really well. And obviously that was sad when I think they mentioned Braverman had a heart attack at some point. I think that's what happened to him, despite him being like a really fit guy. But
yeah.
I love that portion of the book.
I was so happy. It was a good breather.
Maybe that's why I liked it so much. Because when I was thinking about like, especially like the emotions I had with this book, there wasn't many like super like happy go lucky chapters. I mean, this was one that it's definitely a sad and tragic in a lot of ways, in a good way. I mean, I definitely liked it a lot, but you definitely don't get like the happy go lucky side of Hollywood. It's the realistic side. Okay, so I was thinking of something. As far as her 7 husbands, I don't think it would be fair to rank Harry. I think that would just be the obvious, most likable one. But was there one husband in particular that you thought was the relative best?
Goodness.
I think Robert would probably. I mean, he seemed pretty genuine, and he even took up a fatherly role for
Connor.
Evelyn's daughter. I think her
Connor.
name started with a C.
Connor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Everyone else was pretty. Dawn had a little bit of redemption. It was probably not enough to fully bring him back as a character.
You can burn in hell. I don't like him.
Yeah. And it's always hard because the only reason he comes around as a character is because his career in Hollywood just fails. That's it. And like his whole personality, even at the beginning, was just when things are firing on all cylinders in his career, and when they're going great, he's the happiest guy in the world. But the second they take a downturn,
that reminded me of? Have you guys seen A Star Is Born?
Yes,
I have not.
I'm not talking about the most recent one with what's her name?
Lady Gaga. Bradley Cooper.
I'm talking about the original one because that was actually the plot of the original A Star Is Born. This actress, she's doing amazing, she's doing great, and she wins an Oscar, where her husband's career is really, really failing. And he ends up very verbally abusing her, and I think he ends up like killing himself at the end because he just can't take the fact that his wife's more successful. And Dawn's entire character just reminded me of that movie for some reason. I just hate the fact that he was always relying on other people to succeed. Originally, he was relying on his parents. Then later on, he was almost writing on Evelyn, especially at the end. Like he says, like he only got an Oscar because of what she did for that movie. What she did made that movie great.
Their careers were on different trajectories. Evelyn's was going up, and Dawn's was going down, and he obviously felt that, and that's partly why he became so vindictive towards the end of the relationship. And it is interesting. I mean, how far would he have gone? It was definitely like, I think she said like 15 accounts of actual abuse, but how far would that have escalated if she wouldn't have gotten out? But I do think, she's a very strong character. So I think, even though I know relationships with domestic abuse are always very difficult to get out of. So, but yeah.
I don't think she would have gotten out without Harry.
Yeah, it's hard to say. That's, again, goes to Harry, why I think we like him so much as a character, as he was always that person for her. Ernie, the first one.
Bad.
I mean, how do you feel anything about him?
I mean, he's part of a pedophile, so I can't really like him that much.
Yeah.
I'm married a 14-year-old.
Was she that young?
I read that multiple times. I was like, no, they can't be serious. But
she lied to him, though, right? He thought she was older, right?
Okay, she lied and said she was 16. That doesn't make it much better.
No,
yeah.
No, it doesn't.
I'm pretty sure that still wasn't legal age then.
Honestly, I don't know.
What do you think, Jonathan? I know who my favorite is, just character-wise, not necessarily husband-wise, but who's yours? I want to find out.
My favorite of the husbands? Yeah. Oh, I mean, excluding Harry, I would have to say that Rex would be my favorite, excluding Harry.
Yeah, I almost forgot about him.
Yeah, I almost did too, because they focus so much on the negative other husbands. And in the beginning, I did like Don before the abuse. Like he did seem like he was a good guy before all of that.
Yeah. Abby, what did you think about Rex? Oh, sorry, not to cut you off.
No, it's fine.
I'm gonna be honest, I almost forgot about him as well. Now that you pointed out, he was really, really great.
He was really professional.
Exactly. It wasn't a marriage; it was a relationship.
It was a fully platonic friendship, honestly, and he kind of just went along with it too. Like they had their separate things
Vibes.
go. Yeah, I don't think
I thought it was more like a business deal than a relationship.
Yeah.
it
Well,
was.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, okay.
Because they
I
signed
didn't
like
word it well. You're right.
yeah, because they signed on to do movies together, and even that they even stayed together until that end to do like a final movie.
It was a show, and it was really great.
It goes back to just how weird Hollywood is, though. That like relationships like that.
That actually goes back to my favorite husband, Mick. Oh goodness, Mick Rivera. I think his name was Mick Riva.
Oh, really?
Mick Rivera.
The singer?
Mick Riva.
I thought that was so interesting. I thought it was so interesting how the entire relationship came about, just to like pull the paparazzi off her and Celia's relationship. I thought that was so interesting to read about that marriage. Like he wasn't. I guess I didn't like him, obviously, but I just thought it was so cool. It was such a funny little marriage. Mm-hmm.
Well, it was. I mean, they eloped, and then
promptly they eloped. They had sex, and they got divorced.
That was probably the quickest one, right?
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't even a full 24 hours.
Yeah.
I also just loved seeing the differences in how they reported it in the magazine. You know, from Mick Riva's perspective, they were like, "Oh, whatever, that was a fun little dalliance." But with Evelyn Hugo, it was like this tragic heartbreak from rebounding after Dawn.
You know, that brings me to something. I think that was a nice touch to this book, like the magazine clippings that they would put in. Like, I really thought that added a lot of life to it. That was one of my favorite.
Can you show that honestly, again? Can you show the clippings again?
I can show one.
Did you not have clippings in your book?
Not like
you
that.
You didn't get them? Oh, really?
Yeah, mine were just plain, just text.
Oh, that's not as fun. Yeah, no, these are like pull down of like a newspaper clipping or whatever, and yeah, it just adds like it diversifies it. I liked it a lot. I honestly didn't like see myself like even reading them, but like I was so like kind of interested in it, like reading tabloids. It was a nice little touch, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice little storytelling device.
Yeah, I love books that split it up like that.
It really showed how the media like doesn't always, say what actually happens.
It's clickbaiting.
Yeah,
it's click. Yeah, and that's the funny part is like, so she's putting those newspaper clippings in, but at the same time, Evelyn's telling the actual story how they actually had no idea what was really going on. Like it was all just throwing stuff at a wall, hoping it was going to stick. But her actual story was far different. I thought it was
so funny. After she and Max got divorced, there's a newspaper clipping, and he's just going on and on about all the things that she is. She's a cheater, she's a lesbian, and she owes him her Oscar. And then the article goes on to talk about how she's a cheater and how she owed him an Oscar, just completely jumping over the lesbian comment, when really that was probably the most true.
Yeah, but it would have been also the most controversial during the time as well, like just due to the time period. But they were
especially the 80s with the AIDS crisis.
Yes.
Yeah. That and when she went to the Carrie's grave there at the end after Celia died and it was crying, the news saw that, Celia died and that's why she was crying, but they reported what they wanted to see, not what actually happened.
Example.
Yeah.
That's the perfect example, because that is like kind of exactly what I'm talking about. It's just like they thought they were in the know. They were putting these like headlines out there, but in reality, they were far from the actual truth, like her actual story of what was happening.
Yeah, that's so I believe. I was gonna say that's so creepy too, like photographing people like in a graveyard. Like just leave these people alone, let them grieve in peace.
It's like, at what point are you safe from paparazzi or something? If you can't be at when you're grieving the death of, it's like, are you anywhere?
Like they didn't even know it was the love of her life, her true soulmate or whatever, but still a dear friend.
Exactly.
They didn't respect that enough.
Yeah,
exactly. That's like the ultimate just betrayal of privacy.
And I loved how I forget the name of the reporter. They kind of show that this sort of paparazzi style journalism still is very much around today. With that one, it was like the first newspaper article where they were talking about how, I can't believe this Monique chick got this article over me.
Oh, that was like a web post, right?
The spill, yes. And it just goes on and on about how Evelyn Hugo was a bombshell with all these husbands and all these awards, and how they can't believe this random girl got it. And then you look in the comments and you see these people, and they tear Evelyn apart, kind of.
Yes.
And I just thought that was a really good way to show we haven't changed.
Well, and it actually adds another element now, because now you have like the anonymity that comes along with being like an online avatar, like hi, hello, 565, like this person is, or any of these people. They can kind of just really be mean and vindictive with what they say, because there's no repercussions to it.
The little memes. The one guy who just the letter P.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at him too. Sexy Lexi 89, Yuppie Pigs 3. March 4, 2017. Okay. I was actually wondering when it took place. So it was March 4, 2017 was the actual
good year.
Monique timeline. So were there any other, so I feel like we've talked a lot about the good aspects. Abby, was there anything from the book that, or Jonathan, that like didn't work for you in particular? Like that stopped it from being like a 5-star?
Yeah, because you gave it a 3-star, Jonathan, so I'm going to hear what you have to say.
I'm just honestly not into romance books. I see why other people like it though. And I'm really glad I read this, because it was definitely getting out of my comfort zone, reading something new. And who knows, I might read another one. Just because I did enjoy this one more than I thought I would. A 3-star is still a good book for me. But it was also, it reminded me a lot of some of the relationships that I have and have had in my life. So it was kind of weird reading that and seeing similarities, and it really got me thinking. And I'm also not really into tragedies, I guess. I never thought about it, but this book was very tragic.
It is, and that's really what the core of this book is, the tragic romance. Because I'm kind of the same way. I don't like a romance unless it ends badly. And so I think that's why, I love a good tragic romance. And I think that's why I love this book so much, because you knew from the get-go there's no way it was going to end well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get both your perspectives. I felt the same way too. I'm not one that like actively looks out for romance books in particular, but I usually really enjoy romance when I read it, especially when I don't expect it in a book. Like I expected with the name of like the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo that some was going to be involved, like there was going to be romance within it. But I actually thought the romance was probably the strongest part for me, especially with Cecilia and Evelyn in particular. I thought that was the strongest part. I think for me, it was definitely the Monique chapters. I kept going back and thinking of, okay, how could this story have been told without having to have Monique and like those side plots for me? Like whether it was a self-memoir that like Evelyn, like say like Evelyn had found out about the diagnosis, and then
that would have been cool. Like she just sort of made a blog post somewhere.
Maybe, yeah.
That would have been a very Evelyn thing to do, just to be like, okay, I'm sitting down, I'm writing this, and I'm publishing it. I don't need anyone else to help me.
Well, see, and that's what I was thinking of, like a self-memoir, like when she got the diagnosis, just sitting down, writing her whole story, framing it how she wanted it through all of her perspective, and then just handing it off to a publisher. Or maybe it could have been like, I don't know the publisher exactly, but I was thinking, that would honestly have been a way to have gotten what I loved about the story. But again, there was people like, you loved Monique as a character.
I did.
I just said initially not.
I just liked seeing the parallels of their characters and how driven they both were to succeed in their respective fields, and what they were willing to sacrifice to do so. And I thought that was an interesting read. For me, what I really didn't like. Oh, go ahead. Go.
No. So I was just gonna say, just like to wrap it up, my thoughts of like what I didn't particularly like. For some, like that worked really well. For me, not so much, but outside of that, outside of not like fully loving the writing style, a little bit of it felt contrived. It was funny that like you actually really liked the Mick Riva relationship and how that came apart.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that felt like I think a little bit too neat too. Like that was just a perfect way for her to propel to like hide her relationship with Cecilia and to move the plot forward. I was trying to think if how I could see that happening in real life as a way to specifically like hide the relationship she was having. I guess it has happened in Hollywood before. I think like in the early 2000s, Britney Spears had something like that.
Wasn't it the whole thing with Diana and Charles? So they got together to hide the Charles, the king guy in Britain.
Oh, really?
Princess Diana? Yeah, like they got married because he couldn't be with the other girl. I forget his name. Everything I've learned like through osmosis, like from my mom just shouting at me about like what a terrible person Charles is and what a saint Diana is. So like the reason they got together is because the girl that Charles liked is like a quote unquote commoner and a divorcee, so they couldn't get together.
Really? And so Diana, she's the mother of Harry and Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Princess Diana, people's princess.
Yeah, I know. I'm uncultured in many ways, especially that one. I don't know my British.
So. Yeah, I
don't either.
I'd like to add something to mine before you go, Abby. Just as a person, I don't like to follow famous people. And that's basically what this whole book is following like celebrities. Like I have like celebrities. Like I love The Rock. The Rock is great. I don't go out of my way to see like what's The Rock cooking, you know, like that's basically what this book was following people's lives. And I want them to do their thing. I'm gonna do my thing, you do your thing. If it doesn't affect my day-to-day life, then I don't have to know what you had for lunch, which is that's what a lot of people do, follow people on Instagram, see what they have for lunch. I don't know.
Jonathan, no, I know what you're saying though. It kind of goes back to like separating the art from the artist too. That's kind of what I do. I don't always follow too in depth on the artist, but I always appreciate their art. Like whether it's a favorite musician or a favorite actor, actress, the movies that they play in. I'm very much more invested in that than what they are as like actual people. I mean, they could be good. I'm
terrible at separating the actor from the actress. So if I, or the actor from like their work. So if I really like a movie, I will try and learn absolutely nothing about the actors or whatever, because I'm sure to find something terrible that they've done.
That you don't like.
Or like maybe I don't like their character, and then I'm like, oh, no, I can never watch this movie again.
Well, and then it like seeps into like the character that they're actually portraying. When you're watching the movie, like you're seeing, it's hard to get like that actual image out of who they actually are in real life.
100%.
Yeah. It's
but that's the reason like I went into this book kind of like with an mindset, because like I don't like following people. And that was the whole vibe I was getting from reading the dust cover. So
I think that's a testament to the writing style, though, in the book itself, that even despite that, despite not being the biggest fan of romance, despite not being the biggest fan of like celebrity content, you still had a great time reading this.
Oh, and let me tell you, I finished it this morning. Today's the 11th. I started reading at 1 a.m. and I had like 150 pages left, and I finished it. I went to bed at like 4 a.m. I couldn't put it down at the end.
That's determination.
Yeah.
That's how I read it as well. I was in a hammock and I was like, let me just read for an hour. And by the time I finally I think I was like 50 pages from the ending, I had to stop reading because I'd gotten dark outside. I hadn't realized what had happened. It'd been like 5 hours.
Yeah, I will give that to. I probably read it it was a 2 or 3 day period, but I would sit down and read chunks of it at a time. And that's definitely a testament to, I think, how like kind of, it was very page turning in a way. I kept wanting to find out where this was heading. And then there would even be like, like the references that Monique would make to, there's something that happens at the end that makes her feel a sort of way towards Evelyn. And I wanted to find that out. So yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I couldn't start reading it at 3 o'clock and then finish it. I would fall asleep probably, but I could easily see in the daytime, like just finishing it, just sitting down reading it.
I don't know. Like I was saying, I'm a night owl. Like I do most of my reading right before I go to bed.
Almost early bird right there. 1 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Yeah, like I'm going to bed and you're getting up.
Yeah.
Honestly, probably.
You're just on a different time zone now, actually. Completely. But
But the one thing I didn't like was just how neat everything was. Like, beyond the fact that Monique became a journalist of all things, that she did a right to die, or like the right to euthanization article right before this. The fact that she was a great journalist, all those things are just a little too perfect for me. Little too nice. That's like the only thing I didn't like about it.
And it just felt more like it was also hard because with the reveal at the end, then I'm supposed to, it just felt like there would have been too much motivation for Evelyn to give Monique that piece because of the revelation at the end, rather than her actually just being this like fantastic journalist that like she found. To me, it made that part less believable because of the reveal at the end. Feel like, oh, well, that was obviously the motivation for her doing that. I don't know how you guys felt about that. But.
I mean, she's a new journalist. Like she had a one-hit wonder piece. And other than that, she's written, like, from what I got from it, duds. Like they did okay.
BuzzFeed articles. That's what it sounded like.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right. So, like, would she really have gone after her if not for that reveal and the connection between her father and Harry? Probably not. But I feel like it still wanted me to believe that she was a great journalist, and she could have been, but I don't know. It was harder for me too with the reveal.
That's like the only thing I didn't like about it. So.
Yeah, maybe if Monique didn't become a journalist, like you said earlier, Jacob, Evelyn would have posted a blog post about her life.
Yeah. I could have definitely have seen that, or just like a self memoir before she decided to unfortunately kill herself at the end. Anything like that.
Yeah. Man, I couldn't have walked away talking about that scene. I would have had to go back in the apartment. I couldn't walk away knowing what was going to happen.
Well, I don't know. How much do you guys know about like euthanization and like right to die? Like, what do you guys know on that?
Like the bare minimum.
Not too much. Yeah.
I had to do a big presentation on it. Funnily enough, I was like 15. We had got to choose our presentation topic, and I chose euthanization of like sick people because I don't know why. But it's such a devastating topic where she kind of goes into a bit where it's like these people, you can only do so much for them before they're just suffering. They're not living. They're just suffering. And I thought that was a really interesting, I think it made sense for her character after getting so attached to that piece, especially for her not to turn around. I mean, I don't want to get like political or anything, so I don't want to like give my opinion on it, but it's such a difficult topic because you have to choose between letting someone die with dignity. It's often actually referred to that in legal terms, death with dignity, or like keeping them alive, but at the cost of them, in a sense, like a real sense of living.
Man, well, I'd love to keep talking about this, but we're running out of time. So is there anything else you guys like to say before we leave?
I just want to comment that the book cover, despite the fact that her whole thing is that she has big boobs, flat as a board. That annoyed me.
Oh yeah, and I think we talked about this a bit beforehand. I kind of like the cover because specifically this green dress, like she refers to it as.
The green was beautiful.
And she refers to it as her favorite dress in a portion of the book too. And it is kind of like the whole vanity aspect of the novel and of like Evelyn as a character that I don't know. I feel like it captures that, but I'm trying to think of what other cover I could have seen for it. It seemed like something like this was kind of fitting, but I don't know. Maybe that was just personal preference.
I like this, just a solid green cover, like with the title on the side. I took the dust cover off. I thought that was just great.
Yeah. So did that hardbook cover have a what do you call it? Like a book protector that like had an actual cover on it?
Yeah, it had the dust cover and it's the same picture.
Same one. Okay.
Yeah. I tried
to look at some of the other editions.
It's all kind of the same iteration, like blonde woman, green dress.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I think the Midnight Library.
Yeah.
had a lot more variation between the editions. If I remember you guys talking about one in particular,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
see, I like that one too, though.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
All right. It is a pretty good cover. Just, I don't know. It didn't look like Evelyn to me, but I did like the green dress.
Yeah, that's not how I pictured her. I'm really bad about this. I didn't picture her as blonde, even though that was her like defining, like one of her defining physical features. She was a brunette throughout the entire book for me, like a dark brunette.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. But
I just picture her as like breathtakingly beautiful. I'm kind of like we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. I kind of glaze over character descriptions too. So like I didn't know like her exact features. Well, yeah, they refer to some, but I didn't know exactly like what she looked like in my head. But yeah, that's interesting. I can definitely see your perspective on it though.
Yeah. If you had to describe this book in one word, what would it be? Okay,
I'll try it. My adjective would be captivating. That's what I'll say. Because that's how I kind of felt. The character Evelyn, the plot, old Hollywood. It was just like a captivating story that I felt invested in. That's how I would say.
I'd have to say tragic.
I would have to say insightful. I learned a lot about relationships and how Hollywood works, like old Hollywood. Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed it. It was another good pick for the book club.
All right. That was fun. I really enjoyed talking to you guys today. But that's all we have for this episode. Thank you for joining us, Jacob. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I really enjoyed this conversation.
No, yeah. Thank you so much for letting me come on and discuss this book with y'all. I love hearing different perspectives, and it was really interesting to hear everything and talk it through. And hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Make sure you guys leave a comment or an audio message with what you thought. Like and subscribe to this episode if you guys are on YouTube, and give us a follow on Instagram at UpAllKnight Book Club with a K.
Yeah, and we'll see you next episode where we'll be talking about ebooks versus physical books.
Yes, very exciting.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.